as you have already gathered from my children's time, that today is Stewardship Sunday in the church. So you know what that means. I'm going to stand up here and beg for money, right? I'm not going to do that. But please don't misunderstand me here. Supporting the church with our resources, our time, talent, and treasure is important. It's vital for the well-being of our church and the continuation of our ministry and mission, a ministry of extravagant welcome and inclusion, and a mission to participate in creating a just world for all. However, that being said, I believe there's a deeper understanding of stewardship to be unearthed here. There's something beyond simply begging for money. And as we move in that direction, I invite you now to hear the words of the prophet Isaiah.
Isaiah 49, 7 through 13. The Lord Redeemer of Israel and its Holy One says to one despised, rejected by nations, to the slave of rulers, kings will see and stand up. Commanders will bow down on account of God who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel who has chosen you. The Lord said, at the right time, I answered you on a day of salvation. I helped you. I have guarded you and given you a covenant to the people to restore the land and to reassign deserted properties, saying to the prisoners, come out. Can't see it. My glasses are fogging up. And to those in darkness, show yourselves. Along the roads, animals will graze. Their pasture will be on every treeless hilltop. They won't hunger or thirst. The burning heat and sun won't strike them, because one has compassion for them, will lead them, and will guide them by springs of water. I will turn all my mountains into roads. My highways will be built up. Look, these will come from far away. Look, these from the north and west, and these from the southland. Sing, heavens, rejoice, earth, break out mountains with a song. The Lord has comforted his people and taken pity on those who suffer. That ends the reading.
I'm not going to lie, as I began preparation this week and looked at the text that I had before me, I began to wonder, why in the world did I choose this text to preach on Stewardship Sunday? I do it quite a bit in advance. It was a couple of months ago, and I struggled, and I did a lot of research, and I looked, and I nope, Greek there? Nope, that's no help. Oh, wait a minute, it's in the Old Testament. Hebrew there? Nope, that's no help. Until I came across the poem that I'm about to share with you. And this poem is written by the Reverend Kaje Dosa, who is a pastor in the United Church of Christ. She actually spoke at General Synod this year and found her very inspirational. And she's a pastor in Manhattan, in New York, in one of our churches. And this little poem kind of got things started in the right direction and began to then flow into why this text from Isaiah helps us move beyond kind of our normal understanding of stewardship. So I'll share with you this poem. It's called Wild Gifts. You do not have to give perfectly. You do not have to rack your mind, your bank accounts, your possibilities, and dry them up in the desert air. You have your despair, as do I. They are linked. They are repairable if you tell from the place of love and give from them too, imperfectly, imaginatively, prayerfully, true. Your gifts have a place in the family of things. What a beautiful way to think about giving. imperfectly and imaginatively. We're imperfect in our giving of ourselves, in the giving of grace, in our giving of unconditional love. That's just an inconvenient truth. But here's the thing. God didn't call perfect people. Think about the disciples and their frequent lack of understanding and their tendency toward selfish ambition. Think about the prophets who were often very reluctant to fulfill those calls to which God had called them. And think about Paul, the Apostle Paul. He was a persecutor of Christians. When he was still called Saul, he oversaw the stoning of Stephen. And perhaps, maybe excluding the stoning part, we can relate to each of these characters. But it's from this place of imperfection that we're called to be the church. And not to be perfect by any means, but to be gracious and grateful and generous. Not perfect, but generous. Consider the Franco Zeffirelli film about St. Francis of Assisi that came out a number of years ago. It was called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. There's a scene in that picture in which the townspeople bring their gifts to the poor, while the powerful people sit among their accumulated wealth in a majestic cathedral in Assisi. The people who have followed Francis beyond the edges of town bring simple gifts of flowers and vegetables and lambs, and it's clear they represent those on the edge of society, those who are giving back, if not from their poverty, from a place close to poverty, but they're giving back from their hearts. And it's clear that they represent from those who are imperfect people, but they're gracious and grateful for God's presence. Now, most viewers of this film find it hard to resist seeing this same kind of generosity in their own church. A generosity that embodies the same kind of profound joy and deep gratitude. And it's from a place of joy and gratitude, that place of imperfect generosity, that we have become imaginative in our giving. What do I mean? Well, it's through imagination that we can begin to move beyond, that we can move even deeper from our previous and often ingrained understandings of stewardship. In our text for today, the second author of Isaiah offers us a wonderful example of this. Isaiah writes that God said to the Hebrew people, "At the right time, I answered you. On the day of salvation, I helped you. I have guarded you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a covenant to restore the land and to reassign deserted properties, saying to the prisoners, 'Come out,' saying to those in the darkness, 'Show yourselves.'" Now, within its context, this passage, as a beyond understanding of stewardship, began to make perfect sense. You see, the Persian king, Cyrus the Great, had overthrown the Babylonian Empire and announced that all the captive people could return to their homelands under the Persian protection and with the help of Persian resources. Historically, it's understood that Cyrus actually funded the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. So it's little wonder that 2nd Isaiah named Cyrus, a pagan king, as God's Messiah. Messiah being used here to indicate one who has been chosen by God for a specific task. And while in exile, and with the exile finally coming to an end, the exiled Hebrew people, who remember now had been there probably 80, 90, maybe even 100 years. So it's not the same people who went into exile, but it's their families. It's their generations that come after, who've heard all these stories about wonderful Jerusalem. And now is the time for their return. And as they begin their journey home, 2nd Isaiah penned these words, "Prisoners, come out. All those in the darkness, show yourselves. None shall be left behind in dreadful Babylon. All shall have the chance to make the journey to that fabled homeland. And they will be fed along the way, and they will find pastures on the trails. They shall not hunger or thirst, nor be assailed by the scorching wind or the sun." So it's with this sense of hope and liberation looming in the background that we're invited to use our imaginations when it comes to stewardship. And as I thought about it more this week, and I reread this text, I was struck by the line, I have given you a covenant as a covenant to the people, to restore the land and to reassign deserted properties. To restore the land and to reassign deserted properties. Maybe this is a part of the beyond that we're seeking when we think about stewardship. Maybe our stewardship could extend beyond the norm to include stewardship of creation, to restore the land. Maybe our stewardship could extend beyond the norm to include reducing homelessness, to reassign deserted properties. Do you see where I'm going with this? Stewardship being the church becoming ever more engaged in supporting to an ever greater degree environmental justice and social movements that are all around us. That's the core of our calling as a people of faith and as the United Church of Christ. And if we can imagine a world beyond the limits, beyond the boundaries of what society says is possible, well, perhaps, just perhaps, we could live into Reverend Dosha's words. You do not have to give perfectly. You do not have to rack your mind, your bank account, your possibilities, and dry them up in the desert air. You have your despair, as do I. They are linked. They are repairable. If we tell from the place of love and give from them too, imperfectly, imaginatively, prayerfully, and true. Your gifts have a place in the family of things. May we all linger within. May we all be grateful for. May we all imagine the possibilities of what lie beyond and within the family of all things. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.